So okay, we've got it in there now, all ready for to be joined up together. Now the big thing is, this thing is going to be a massive tail setter because you've got all this hanging out the back, okay? Now obviously we're going to have the ramp down, so the ramp will support the actual cargo itself, so it won't matter because it'll be sitting slightly on the ramp. If you're having it with the ramp closed, the only way you can do it is pack it out with lead. Now I've put some sheets under here just to help it out a little bit so it's not total weight on there, but it's basically calling out for 40 grams at the front, and then in the cargo area itself it's basically saying another 30 grams. So it's a lot of lead you're going to need in there to weigh this little thing down. As I said, it doesn't really matter to us because we'll have it around the other way, but I'm just showing you down here, you could pack lead sheet, you know, you can buy a roll or have a word with the roofer and buy a little bit of lead sheet off of him, and you can put it down underneath here. Quite handy because you can mould it to your shape you want, you can roll it up and everything else. So we've got that one in there, super glued in place. So now we can bring the fuselage halves together. Now I know what you're thinking, why haven't we put the ramp in yet? The ramp we're going to put in afterwards. We're going to have it as a fit so we can actually put that in. So we'll bring the two halves together so we can have a look, see how it's going to fit. So top's on there for the moment. We're happy how that is. So we just pop some in there. Front is okay as well, so we'll just pop a little bit of tape on the front. It's just to hold it together so we can see how it's looking. If it doesn't go together, obviously you know you've got a problem, which might sound really simple, but sometimes it's a little tiny thing, you know, something slightly out of place inside it, something like that. It's not quite sitting right, can totally fool a seam like this and make what should be a straightforward, you know, sand job, rescribe and everything else into a total nightmare. So we're just going to work our way along the top of the fuselage. Now I'm working deliberately along the top first, is because that is the bit everybody's going to see. So I want that one to be perfect. The rest of them I can work with. But that's all looking very nice up here. So we just pop a little bit of tape there. All good on the top. The bottom itself now. So what we've got is a little gap down the bottom here. So what we want to try and do is work out why that is. Is it something to do with something that's in the way, something that's slightly out of alignment? And what that actually is this fuselage section is slightly high on one side. So we're going to template and give it a bit of a push. Okay, and try and get that all up together because we need it to settle down just a little bit, but it's just down the bottom here. It needs to go in and forward a little bit, but that is the problem we've got. So what we'll do, we'll open it up again and just have a look to see why it's not having any of that. Just take these off. Okay, now we can see, and what it probably is where we put a little bit too much super glue down this back end. It's not wanting to sit in there nicely, so we just reposition it and set it down in there. Okay, have a look, see if there's any obvious reasons why. Come back up again and see if we can get it a better fit this time. We'll try and fit top halves together like we did last time. It's all in there. Just fiddling, adjusting, manoeuvring, just to see why. And there we go, it closes up now. And what it is just getting the right arch along this back with this panel. But once that's in, as you can see, it will go together. So we'll have to tack that in place. A little bit of filler job going to be needed on that. But to be honest, we will be running filler all around the seams. So we're happy that that's going to close okay. So what we'll do is, we are literally just going to line up all the holes, pop some tape over just to hold it together. Okay, So we'll get it in there, then we're just going to come along, feeling it to get as smooth as we possibly can, and then generous extra thin all along there. Again, pushing to make sure it's all in how it should be. And obviously you don't want to be round holding it forever. So obviously you can use clamps, you can use twisters, or anything else like that. So what I've got here is some clamps. Pop one clamp there. These aren't the best clamps in the world because they spin. If they were on a square, it would be so much easier. Let's try it this way. Okay, just to get the bite going across. And then what you can do, you can tack with a tiny bit of super glue in little dots just to hold it in place. Tiniest small little dots, don't go overboard with it because otherwise you end up making more work. But once you're happy, you've got it all lined up, squirt with kicker. Giving it a blow just to speed it up. And those little dots will hold it in place as you're waiting for the glue to dry. Okay, so we've been fiddling with this now for the last probably half an hour trying to get this to fit in, okay? And to be honest, I've even taken out this centre section again. I thought I had it wrong. I've replaced it, I've sat it in and everything else. But no matter how we juggle this, to be honest, getting this bottom plate to be anything but a half a decent fit is proving to be very, very hard indeed. I just can't get it to sit in. It just seems to be one of those areas. And I'm all for, you know, perhaps a bit of perseverance and testing and playing with a fit and everything else. But it just seems to be, it doesn't want to go. And you have to have an amazing amount of splay going on and everything else. So what I'm going to have to do is bite the bullet on this one and literally just tack it into position, and we'll worry about it all afterwards. So things to remember, just that will make it somewhat easier. Obviously, if you get the windows to line up, that's always a good thing. But secondly, make sure this nose wheel section is right the way forward. It's got to be touching this front bulkhead with that in there. Otherwise, it sits too far back. It sits the entire thing too far back, and it's even worse fit. So I've cured that by making sure that nose wheel is right up the front completely. And that did stop a few of the problems, but it's not getting rid of them all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack the actual fuselage sides to this bottom plate, but it's going to have big gaps all the way down here. So it's a bit like when we did the Chinook. It's going to be a case of place it in, make half a decent job of it, or as best as you can, then go round afterwards, and with a little bit of perseverance, try and get it in there. It's just that you can ram it right the way forward and get it sort of halfway there, as I say, get the windows in the right place and everything else and have it in. But it's like real brute force. You're really having to push the centre section in and everything else, and it just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to want to fit anywhere sort of nicely. So what I'm going to do, I've got it, the windows somewhat lined up, but there again it's still not quite right here. So it's just a real tight problem getting them all in. As I say, it's one of those ones, it seems really strange. It doesn't go easier. I'm trying to do this without bending too much plastic, but honestly it is proving to be somewhat of a merry dance trying to get it all in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a blob of glue down here at the bottom corners, a little bit on this top one as well. This is just super glue, and what I'm going to try and do is tack it all as we go along, then we'll glue it all together solid and we'll go through. Now, little things, just as we've been fighting to this, is to remember, is that if you're doing, obviously, the later versions of these, there's holes to open up on the belly of this. We're just doing the normal one, so we're not worried too much about it. So what I'm going to do is just tuck this in. Now this is quite strange because this bottom bit here all fits in very nicely. Got no problems with that at all. It all seems to go in and fit. That's the strange thing about all of this. It's just that the actual centre section itself just doesn't seem to want to line up. But it's always the problem with these types of things. Most helicopters tend to have an interior like this, and getting them all to line up with a fuselage does tend to lead you, let's say, a bit of a merry dance. So what we're going to do, we've tack that one in there. We're going to put another little tack join up here. Okay, there is obviously some little things we can do to make them better. So we just put these in, but say the join themselves, it all works, it all joins up. It's just making it join up is a real fiddly pain. So as I said, we're going to go around this one, same as this, all the way around. I'm going to do it sections front to rear, working forward, and then eventually we're going to go around with the extra thin glue like we did before, go right the way over, leave it for a couple of hours to totally come off, come back, sand it down for the first time, put some filler in where required, and we can have a good look to where we're to. Okay, as you know, I do like to share everything with you, and this is by no means any different. As you can see, we've ripped open the bottom because I can't get this to fit. By no stretch of the imagination is it going to go in. Now, so what we're trying to do now is basically work out why it's not going in. We seem to have correct at the front, we're correct at the rear. The windows, all right, not perfectly lined up, but they're very close. Okay, but for some reason, the floor just seems to be too big. So what we've actually done is break it open. Now that's one of the nice things about using super glue. You can tack it in place. It's not working, crack it off and then sand it back and start again. But I'm just going to try without the floor. Seems funny, I know, but I just want to know exactly what's going on and what's stopping this from manoeuvring around and everything else like that. Is it a simple case of the floor? See, that fits perfectly now at the rear. I know it'll be alright at the front, yeah. So for some reason the floor, the spread of the floor is just making it a little bit too wide to fit in. So what we're going to try and do now is just manhandle the floor in a bit. So it's loose enough to be able to fit up inside. Something like this. Just need to square this off. Okay, let's try the floor in again. So what we'll do, we just clean off these bits of super glue it's got on here at the moment. Where it's should be just a case of flicking it like these, just digging the old stuff out. It should just fracture off quite easily. Just one down that. Okay, I'm just going to try this again. Still got this spread. It just literally seems to be the floor is interfering with the spread at the rear. seem to have a floor covering, but how this... Now that works a lot better to the rear. So just trying to work out. See, it does still seem to be off. I must admit, I'm running out of options of how to get this to sit in, because I can't actually see what the problem is, why it won't fit in, or anything like that, which is a bit of a pain, I must admit. You know, we've had this cockpit in and out now, this section, so many times. It's unbelievable. What we're going to do is just take a little bit of height out of these tops and see if we can get it to lift up just a fraction. Let's say, if you join us in a minute, I'm going to have a fiddle and a lot of dry fitting and see if I can come up for a fix. Okay, so as you know, never to be one to say, here's one I did earlier, covered in it now. Okay. Took this completely apart again. We've had the cockpit out, ripped it out and everything else, which just goes to show, don't panic. When things go wrong, you can put them right. Okay, what have we done? In a nutshell, we've ended up finding the problem. Now, for some reason, and I'm not too sure if it's a bulkhead problem, but the thing is we're touching at the front and at the rear, so I can't understand what it is. But we've actually gone and taken, you can probably see that, quite a chunk, that's 1 millimetre, off of the entire cargo bay bulkhead side, obviously at the front. For doing that, unfortunately, the only thing it does do, this is the last area to do, is obviously rearranges and rejigs everything slightly in there. That said, it redoes it all very, very nicely. I'm literally just hacking at this. What we've got here is a standard Tamiya saw. So we're just making a 1 mil, holding it with my finger behind. Edge of the cutting mat. Okay, and we're cutting 1 mil off, just like so. Quick clean up with a old sanding stick, very coarse one. Okay, and then we can try and put this together. But when you come and you put this in, the first thing you notice, we just bring you in a little so you can see, is that when we were doing it before, you came in, this was always a very tight fit down here at the back where this ladder was. The windows, the doors, none of it lined up. Now, you probably pop them in, you can see we have them all lining up there very nicely, okay? So it's up to the front, very tight now, 1 mil missing. So I said, I'm not sure what the problem is in here, but some reason we're 1 mil out. But now we've got the bulkhead resitted, the front obviously is still right at the front of the nose well, and we can pop this in. So what we're going to do, we're going to come back to square one again, where we take what we've actually done, gone along with our sanders, and literally just chewed up and carved up new points at the front. So what we'll do, we'll just tack this back together, same way as we did it before. Okay, so we can roughly pop it all in. And again, if this fails us again, we'll have to take it apart and start again. So okay, let's just lean these all in. So we start at the front might be better, because we know where we are. So as I say, we have gone around, chopped at it, to be honest, extremely hard, trying to get all these in, which doesn't make for a pleasant building experience. Okay. So we just need these to bite a bit. This is where I need another hand so I can squirt the kicker. Okay, just put a drop at the front here. It's got a little gap, so I'm using it as gap filling. There's one in. And we can come in with the second. Oh, that didn't work. So yes, I am fighting with this kit now. It's fighting me all the way. Flashbacks of a Corsair. Okay. Okay, so just for speed, what we've done, we've placed the top in now. Okay, so the sides have gone on, they've been glued in. We've put the centre in by pushing it up on the inside. We've made it a little bit smaller so we've got a little bit of room for play. And then just for speed, obviously you could use filler, but what I'm going to use is super glue, which is my new best friend for doing this model. And I'm just running it down the seams on both sides. Now this is that thick stuff I was using, so it's a bit more like jelly. Okay, and then we'll just use a toothpick or a cocktail stick just to drag it down as we go. Just trying to get it to flow down. Two things. One, it's going to act as a gap filler. Not that we're going to see much in here, admittedly. And there's a big part of me that thinks, why am I doing all this? But it's one of those ones, I know it's going to be done. I know it's going to be done right, okay? So we're just going to keep popping the thicker super glue down, and then what we're going to have to do is respray this entire centre section to make it all good again. So what we'll do is just down there. Okay, in with some kicker, and that is our inside. Okay, but as I said, we've got to go round and we're going to have to take care of it to tidy it up, but it's certainly a better fit. We know it all fits now as well, which is a major thing. So when we come in, this is just that bottom section, and place it in now, it actually fits no problem at all. But that box section seems to be too big and is actually bulging it out. I'm going to let that dry off. I'm going to pop in here with a bit of paint and do some touch-up work, which I'll show you in a minute. Then finally we can get this thing all sealed up, bolted together, two halves glued in, and really push on. Okay, so we've just airbrushed the tan colour in the roof, and as you see, you can't really see it. It's done quite a nice job up there. We've done silver down this leading edge is just underneath, which it needed anyway. So now we've got to touch up is just down in here. So for that, I've just got some grey paint knocked up, and we're just going to pop this around and touch in the areas which got oversprayed. So it only has to be a relatively quick job. It's just tidying up all those edges. I've got some overspray round. There's a couple of areas where even I missed, so it's handy we've done it that way. Okay, we'll just give it a light brush over. Just give it that effect. And there we go. Cargo hold is back to how it should have been in the first place before it didn't fit. So we just move those out of the way. Put some lids on. And say it's been a fight right the way through this one for getting these in, but in some ways it's all part of the fun and helps with the learning curve. Okay, the floor section, let's say we've taken the bit off the front, okay? So just make sure you're clean edged and everything else. And obviously I've got a lot of wet paint on the go in here, so we're just going to be rather careful with how this one fits in. But it's going to go on into the inside and sits in just like that. And then just to test how things are, make sure we get this around the right way. That's it. We'll just pop this in. Just got a little touch at the front. That should then sit in, push down in, and then now we find when it goes in, as you can see at this edge now, well, hopefully it's at this edge, we've got a good edge, and so we have on the other side. So we're all fine how that one sits in there now. So what we can do is gently, very gently, tack the floor in. So we're just going to tack this front corner first. We've almost gone through a tube of glue here doing all this work, and a bottle kicker trying to get this fixed, but it'll be worth it in the end. Okay, we're just going to tack that edge in. Okay, and then what we'll do is we're going to sit these two in here. We need to just do a little bit of super glue here. So just flick that out. Get rid of that. We don't have to worry about being too neat in this area because, to be honest, we've got the actual pods for the gear and all the activators and everything, and all the gubbins are going to go in there. I've got a couple of little bits to clean off. Here's another one. But as I say, I know a lot of people say about super glue is a no-no, but in something like this, if we had glued this before trying to get this together, we would have been in real trouble trying to get it all apart. So at least by using super glue on a big structure like this, we can now get in there, that way might help, and get it fixed up. So that goes in, that drops in there. There we go. So we're all in there. Nice. We've got a bit of a gap here, but obviously with a bit of jiggling we take care. Nicely down there. We're going to be all round to the front and everything okay. So I'll get this one glued on the bottom. Okay, there we go. That's it. Sectioned in. Banded on the back just to hold it all into place now. So what we're going to do, we're going to leave it now for a few hours just to basically go off, okay, and then we can come back, get some filler on there to really sort of start the process going, and then we can move on with the other areas, sort of getting wings and pods and everything onto this one.